Hello everyone, first news update for 16th of April. Now it's 9:30 in the morning Moscow time, and I have prepared quite a number of news that Russian media and public pay attention to in previous 12 to 24 hours, and I hope you will find this episode informative and interesting, and if so, please don't forget to click that like button and leave some commentary. Share information about my channel or the video with your friends that might help to reach wider audience and also to deal with immensely aggressive algorithm. And also please consider, if you like my work or my channels, please consider to support this project. You can do it through several means, with donation through PayPal or Boosty platforms, or by subscribing to my Patreon page. All the links are on this video in the description box and in the pinned comment. And you will support independent media project in Russia, by the way, and my work by doing so. And many thanks to everybody who already helped her. And let's go through some news now. And first of all, I give you latest update from Russian Defense Ministry that overnight, early hours of this morning, air defense systems on duty intercepted 26 drones that were launched by Kyiv regime with assistance of NATO member states to strike deep into Russian territory. 9 drones were intercepted over the Voronezh region, 8 drones over the Belgorod region, 4 drones over the territory of Kursk region, 2 drones over the Lipetsk and also over the Crimea, 1 drone over the territory of Moscow region. No precise information about casualties or more or less significant damage on the ground as a result of this attempt of Kyiv regime to strike deep into Russia. If any update on that, of course, I will share additional information on my Telegram and Twitter X pages in the next updates. Vzгляд newspaper is also reporting, and I think this is important news, that Russian armed forces start adapting new kit for aerial bombs. Name of this new kit is Cometa and Cometa module, and I guess if initial introduction of these FAB bombs, FAB glide bombs, created a shock effect on enemy, then introduction of this new glide kit to aerial bombs will do even more effect, will achieve even more effect, because precision of these glide bombs gonna increase significantly, I guess. Videos already are circulating with the deployment of these bombs. You are seeing on your screen right now deployment of these FAB bombs with this new Cometa kit, and as you can see, dear friends, bombs are targeting positions right next to each other. So I guess accuracy of these glide bombs has increased significantly. In upcoming days and weeks, probably we will hear much more about this new addition to the arsenal of the Russian aerospace forces. Also, let's go through some other news. RIA Novosti is reporting that according to reports from resistance forces in Kyiv-controlled territory, or pro-Russian underground, as they are also called, coup d'etat is being prepared in the Kyiv-controlled territory against Zelensky's regime. We should take her information with a pinch of salt, but because RIA Novosti is reporting about it, I guess there is some foundation behind this news. So servicemen of 95th Separate Airborne Assault Brigade of the Ukrainian Armed Forces are ready to lead the march on Kyiv with the aim to overthrow Zelensky and his entourage. RIA Novosti was told in the anti-fascist underground pro-Russian resistance, one might say, on Kyiv-controlled territory, veterans and officers of 95th Separate Airborne Assault Brigade of the Ukrainian Armed Forces have declared their readiness to oppose Zelensky. Their paratroopers have called on the military and civilian population to march on Kyiv. The agency sources stated, as noted in the underground, the composition of the 95th Brigade of the Armed Forces of Ukraine believes, or personnel of this brigade believes, that Zelensky's policy leads to disintegration of Ukraine and the subsequent division of its territories among the foreign states. The militants, according to underground activists, are ready to lead the campaign to overthrow Zelensky in order to prevent the collapse of and division of their country, disintegration of the country. Zelensky's presidential term, as we all know, expired on May 20. Ukraine's 2024 presidential election was cancelled, citing martial law and general mobilization. And yet again, we should take this information with a pinch of salt. But yet again, we all know that US administration now is in hostile relationships with their Zelensky's regime and also with the globalists that are basically taking care of Zelensky lately, after Trump's inauguration at least. And therefore, I wouldn't be surprised at all if US will use some means that they have, some assets that they have in Kyiv controlled territory, including among militaries, to orchestrate a coup d'etat and overthrow Zelensky, then to conduct some sort of elections and put some more reliable for the US or more acceptable for US candidate in the presidential office, so that negotiations between Washington and Kyiv will go more smoothly. So therefore, I think it is a possibility clearly that coup d'etat is in the preparations on Kyiv controlled territory by 95th Brigade or by some other brigades, or I mean details of course I cannot know, but that's the report that RIA Novosti is sharing with the public, and I think it is important to pay attention to it. And when it comes to Zelensky, by the way, as we all know, he's illegit leader or so-called leader of Ukraine, and he moved to delay elections further. So Ukraine's Vladimir Zelensky has submitted a bill to extend martial law in the country by another 90 days, which would rule out any chance of a new presidential election being held within the time frame. And also he imposed a bill to state rather in Ukraine, which is a parliament, about prolongation of this forced mobilization that this Western-backed terrorist regime of Zelensky is conducting by kidnapping people literally from the streets and from the stores and so on. In many cases, they are breaking into homes of the people and they're taking them straight to the front lines. And well, this information is definitely once again indicates that Zelensky and his associates are quite emboldened because you know, they have new masters now, globalists. They've been treated quite well by their globalist puppet regimes in Europe, in UK, in France, in Germany, and therefore Zelensky clearly feels, it seems like, in a strong enough position to don't care about US position or the position of the US president and his administration that are demanding elections to take place. And there were rumors recently, isn't it, that elections might actually take place this summer, but well, it's not gonna happen. At least Zelensky is not willing to go for elections, and he's trying to prolong his stay in office, and therefore martial law and forceful mobilization. RT is also reporting that well, Zelensky is so emboldened, by the way, by this by finding these new masters, globalists, that he is almost on daily basis now lashes out on US leadership, which is I mean something. It's like a circus, by the way. I mean, what is going on? This is too embarrassing for US, or should be at least, right, for US and US administration. But it is factual, isn't it? Zelensky on daily basis nowadays lashes out at Trump, Trump's envoys, by the way, just about everybody. And, you know, he feels quite comfortable doing so. And I don't know what's going on in Washington, but some steps have to be taken because Zelensky is ruining already damaged reputation of the US. And if Washington cannot control even such a puppets as Zelensky and his inner circle, then what kind of superpower a US is really, right? Question might rise, and probably are rising worldwide, because people are watching this stuff, right? And in this particular case, Zelensky lashed out again on Trump's envoy. U.S. President Donald Trump's special envoy Steve Witkoff has no mandate to discuss territorial issues between Moscow and Kyiv. Now Zelensky is telling Witkoff what kind of mandate he has or don't. Not to Trump, U.S. President, but Zelensky. I mean, this is really too embarrassing for U.S., isn't it? The statement came in response to a journalist's question during the press conference alongside NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte in Odessa on Tuesday. Ukrainian leader was asked to comment on Witkoff's recent remarks that the peace deal between Russia and Ukraine revolves around 5 regions. Ukraine is a sovereign state, Zelensky said, and all territories belong to their unitary state of Ukraine, and therefore only the people of Ukraine can speak about the territories of our state. Recognizing any formally Ukrainian regions as belonging to Russia is another red line for Kyiv. He added, therefore, the representative you mentioned, Steve Witkoff, is discussing issues outside his competence. This is not the first time Zelensky has lashed out at Witkoff. Last month, the Ukrainian leader accused the US envoy of parroting Kremlin narratives. You tell me, dear friends, what you make of all this confrontation between Kyiv regime and Washington, but I think it clearly damages already the US reputation that is already in quite a bad shape, isn't it? And it's a clear hit on Trump's administration, because it's definitely not Zelensky who can tell Witkoff what kind of mandate he has or he has not, and what he can talk about and what not. This is a clown show, by the way. Anyways, let's continue. And dear friends, as you know, I had usually two live streams on weekly basis. At least I'm trying to do these 2 live streams on Mondays and Fridays. And yesterday I announced that Friday's live stream will be moved to my Rumble channel. And if you are not subscribed to my Rumble channel and watching this video on YouTube, please consider to join our community on Rumble. It's free, unlike Patreon and Boosty platforms. Rumble is free for subscription, and my channel is monetized there. So if you subscribe to my Rumble and watch my updates there, sometime in the future, if our community grows and view numbers grows, sometime in the future, Rumble may become significant source of support for this project. And also, dear friends, this Friday I will have a live stream on Rumble, and what I want to do is to introduce kind of a new feature to these live streams, which is that even though I have daily updates, sometimes 2 updates a day, there might be some topics that you want to hear some additional news about, or maybe you want to highlight certain questions, topics. So during the live streams, by the way, if I receive questions or the topics, commentaries through PayPal, Boosty, or PayPal platforms, I will start beginning my live streams with these questions, and I will try to do some additional research on the topics to be as informative as I possibly can while reacting on these questions, right? So just to know that maybe you want to receive some additional information about something. I don't know, maybe you are planning to travel to Russia and want to know if there is any tourist trips, for example, from Moscow to Vladivostok, right, to cross entire Russia. And if I receive such a question, for example, questions can be about anything. And if I receive such a question, I'll be obligated to do some research, and I will share during the live stream whatever information I will find in a Russian segment of internet. And as I said, questions and topics can be any, literally, as long as it's from open sources. Obviously, it's simple. So yes, I will advertise this feature on daily basis because quite often some members of our community are upset that I didn't react on their question during the live streams, and this way you will be sure that I would not miss your question or the topic if you send it through PayPal, Patreon, or the boosting. Okay, that's being said, let's continue with some more news. And RIA Novosti is reporting that Vice President of US, J.D. Vance, has criticized Zelensky for his attacks. And I think this is just the beginning. This is just the beginning. US leadership will, I think, intensify criticism, and also US leadership most likely will take whatever steps are necessary to neutralize this group of criminals that are in charge formally in Kyiv. And let's go through this news why Zelensky was criticized by Vance. Unheard Internet Portal. In an interview with the Unheard Internet Portal, US Vice President J.D. Vance called Vladimir Zelensky's attack on the US unproductive rhetoric and absurd. I think it's kind of absurd for Zelensky to tell American government which country which currently maintains their entire government and military efforts of their Kyiv regime, that we are in any way on the side of Russia. It's obviously counterproductive when said, and I guess people in Trump's administration are getting tired of these constant attacks, and Vance has a point. US continues, under Trump's administration, continues to support Zelensky's regime. Why? Why? When we all understand that prolongation of this proxy war is definitely not in the interests of the US citizens or this America First project that allegedly Trump and his administration, forces that are behind them, have. So, I mean, Vance is correct, for sure, but the question is why you are still supporting those mass murderers and the terrorists? I mean, why are you doing this? Maybe it is time for US leadership to actually confront globalists and their puppets, not just in the Kyiv regime, in the Kyiv, but also in the governments of European NATO member states. Or maybe this America First group in US is not yet strong enough to do so. That's what I think about when I see this constant tit-for-tat criticism from two sides of the Atlantics. RT, meanwhile, is reporting that Vance also went to say that Europe cannot be a permanent security vassal of the US. So, yes, yet again, kind of criticism of European states that are controlled by the globalists, but more steps definitely has to be taken. And according to Vance, at the present, only 3 European nations, UK, France, and Poland, have self-sustained militaries. Rest is heavily rely on US. And I have to disagree with Vance. I spoke about this topic in yesterday's second update on my Patreon page, and I will repeat if I may that Vance may not 100% be correct on that, because UK and Poland heavily rely in their defense on foreign supplies from US or the other countries. So these two countries cannot be counted as a self-sufficient, no way. When it comes to France, French policies always was to rely mainly on their own military production, and that's why France is operating with their locally built planes, locally built tanks, vessels, and so on. But yet again, according to military experts, French militaries, even though they are relying mainly on their own military industrial complex, are not as strong as some might think, and after all, France was kicked off from Sahel region, right? And it means something. So how self-sufficient French army is really? I don't know. It might operate with their own locally built equipment, but their army itself is weak. It's just paper tiger. They were kicked out of Sahel, by the way, right? Do you need any more confirmation that the French army, French military is just a paper tiger, really? Barely capable of anything? RT is also reporting that, and when it comes to Poland, by the way, I had the news, let me find it. This is the news that Poland, meanwhile, is becoming, as I just said, Poland is heavily relying on military supplies from outside, and Poland is now tops the list of arms importers, which is quite interesting. Poland has taken the first place in the world in imports of the military products, having concluded the contracts worth 68.261 billion, so over $68 billion worth of contracts have been signed by Poland for weapons to be, imported by this by militaries of these countries, which is a quite lot. Poland is militarizing itself significantly, and I think this should be concern for neighbors of the Poland, first of all, for Russia also, but first of all, I think this should be concern for NATO member states that are also neighbors of the Poland, because who knows what Warsaw will do in a decade or two, when they will feel that they are in a strong enough position to take some steps to fulfill their imperialistic dreams. And one should keep in mind, by the way, that Polish elites still dreaming about being empire, dreaming about being a major power in Europe, as there were sometime in the past, by the way, during Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth, right? So this information definitely should be concerned for Hungary, Slovakia, Germany, first of all, by the way, because once Poland will reclaim territories in the western Ukraine that used to be part of Poland before Second World War, I think many people in Germany will raise their voice about German territories that was given to Poland as a compensation for losing some territories in Soviet favor after Second World War in the East, right? And Germany and Poland well may end up in a political and then even military confrontation. Just give it another decade, maybe a bit more, and it might become a reality. Risk is there for sure. But anyways, let's continue. RT is reporting that, globalists, by the way, did manage to introduce some tensions inside Trump's administration. And the Trump administration in general is under heavy pressure, isn't it? From outside and from inside, right? There are Democrats and all those so-called NGOs that are operating in US. They are funded by whom? By globalists and their assets, right? And so information is that US President Donald Trump's senior advisors disagree on, they are in a conflict, by the way. Basically, there is one group, let's say Witkoff and Vance, that are pragmatic group, right? They want the escalation with Russia. They want to distance US from this proxy war that are being waged against Russia. They want normalized relationships with Russia. And there is another group that represents neocons that are led also by, formally at least, by Marco Rubio, head of State Department, and also Kat Kellogg plays some role there among this other group, and tensions are increasing between these groups in US, and even though currently Trump seems like he's more relies on Witkoff-Vance group, things might change. And soon, neocons and globalists may actually overtalk White House, and Trump might become yet another puppet of the globalists, as they have a lot of them in US and in Europe, right? So let's hope this pragmatic America First group and adequate people, basically, as far as I understand, in Trump's administration, Witkoff Vance will win this internal conflict in Trump's administration. Otherwise, US is done. By the way, US will get involved in this proxy war even more, even deeper, and that will harm US ever more severely in the short run and in the long run. And yesterday, by the way, Duran had their episode about this internal confrontation in Trump's administration. I definitely recommend all videos from Duran, and that's yesterday's video in particular, because hosts of Duran, Alex Christoforou and Alexander Mercouris, went into some details there, and it was a very interesting program, by the way. And if you by chance are not familiar with the Duran channel, under this video on YouTube, by the way, under this video, in the description box, you will find channels in a recommendation list that I have, and Duran is the first channel there in the list. So more information is there, but it is clear that there is some tensions inside the Trump administration, and I really hope these pragmatic or adequate people will prevail. And if so, US will be in a better place for sure. In that case, relationships between Russia and US potentially will really start improving, and in coming years might even reach a working level. It's a possibility. And globalists will become even weaker in that case. And globalists are main threat for this world, isn't it? So, yes, more and more publications about this internal conflict in US. RT is also reporting that US blocks G7 condemnation of the Russia over Sumy strike. According to Bloomberg, US President Donald Trump administration has reportedly refused to back a G7 statement condemning Russia's recent missile strike on Ukraine's city of Sumy, according to sources cited by the Bloomberg. And well, yet again, this position of Washington clearly demonstrates that for now Trump is leaning more towards these adequate people in his inner circle, Witkoff, adequate pragmatic people, Witkoff, Vance, and some others, because after all, they know perfectly well that Tulsi Gabbard could be, and probably is, in that group of pragmatics. And this decision is quite understandable because, of course, Trump himself and his inner circle, at least adequates, know perfectly well that Russia targeted point of concentration of Kyiv regime's forces in Sumy, and collateral damage that occurred as a result of those strikes that eliminated over 60 military personnel of Kyiv regime, according to Russian Defense Ministry, including high-ranking officers. Collateral damage that occur in a time frame of that strike is absolutely on Kyiv regime. Absolutely on Kyiv regime. They should never, ever organize gathering of the militaries in a densely populated area, in the central part of the densely populated area. It's just, I don't think this is too difficult to understand, right? So, in my opinion, quite understandable position of the US. And if anybody still has any doubts that there were militaries, by the way, military gathering in the central part of Sumy, which was targeted by Russian forces with their two Iskander missile strikes, then we have additional indicator that that is the case, because as you know, straight after these strikes occur, number of officials in in Kyiv-controlled territory, including members of the parliament and some officials in the regions, mayor of the city, and so on, they come up with the demands that the governor of the Sumy to be resigned and to be punished, and also heads of local security services and so on. And guess what happened? Zelensky dismissed the head of Sumy region. Is this a indicator enough, good enough indicator that Russia was saying the truth all along, and Russian armed forces targeted militarism? It is, isn't it? So, cabinet of the minister of the Ukraine has agreed to dismiss the head of the Sumy regional administration, Vladimir Artush, aimed the Russian armed forces strike on the site of the meeting of the Ukrainian armed forces command staff in the Sumy. So I guess there should be no more questions, by the way, about these strikes. It is a tragedy, obviously, that there was a collateral damage and civilians were killed there. But Russia was targeting clearly militaries. And it's a legit target, by the way. When any gathering of the militaries is a legit target. That's how it is, by the way. And no one can say otherwise. It is what it is. And me personally, by the way, I still think that these casualties among civilians were caused by Zelensky's regime. I may don't have details now, what they did about. We can just speculate, but I think they were involved in that. And sometime in the future, we're going to find out for sure. But topic itself of the strike on Sumy is close. Russia targeted militaries, and there is too many factual, direct and indirect confirmations of that, including this news that under pressure from society and some officials, Zelensky and cabinet of the ministers in Kyiv made decision to remove this individual governor of the Sumy because he was involved in organizing that gathering of the militaries in the central part of the Sumy. Let's continue with some more news. And RT is reporting that EU is blackmailing Serbia's President Vučić over the Moscow visit. So EU member states have warned Serbia that it might lose a chance to join the bloc if President Alexander Vučić attends a World War II celebration in Russia next month. The Financial Times and the Telegraph reported on Tuesday. And by the way, it's not just some leaders of the EU member states that are extreme Russophobes, but also formerly head of EU diplomacy, Kaja Kallas, issued some warnings to everybody in EU, including leadership of Balkan republics, not to come to Moscow. Otherwise, during the celebration of the victory in a great patriotic war, which is a greater celebration here in Russia and in many former Soviet republics on 9th of May, of course. And Vučić plans to come to Moscow, and he was attacked personally too, and not just him, by the way. I think Vučić will still come to Moscow, because after all, Serbia don't really need joining EU, by the way. What are we talking about? Why would Serbia join EU? For what? For what? It will be a million times better if Serbia will join BRICS. Million times better, by the way. In every possible way. Why should Serbia join EU? But what a sick idea is that? Right? Unbelievable, man. And as I said, it's not just the president of Serbia that is under pressure, by the way. All the other leaders that were voicing concerns about this craziness of the Western ruling class and elites when it comes to this constant Russophobia and immense Russophobia and constant attempts to escalate with Russia. And among such leaders, definitely there is Fico, Prime Minister of Slovakia, who is also plans to come to Moscow, and he was very angry when Kaja Kallas come up with these threats towards leaders of EU member states that if they will, go to Moscow, they will face consequences. Fico is not a person with whom Kaja Kallas or anybody can mess around, for sure. After all, for his ideas and principles, he risked it all. I mean, he was shot, for God's sake, several times and survived. And there was another attempt on his life, and it did not break him. It seems like he come on top of their situation and even more convinced that his vision of their world is correct, right? So Slovakian Prime Minister Robert Fico said there he intends to take part in the May 9th parade in Moscow, despite the warnings from the EU diplomacy chief Kaja Kallas. Fico, as reported by RIA Novosti, announced his intention to participate in the parade on 9th of May. This statement was a response to words of the head of European diplomacy, Kaja Kallas, who spoke out against the participation of European leaders in such an event. Fico stressed that his decision was motivated by the desire to pay tribute to Red Army soldiers who played a key role in the liberation of Slovakia during the World War II. I am going to Moscow on May 9th is MS Kallas warning, blackmail or announcement that I will be punished upon my return from Moscow. I don't know, but I know that it's a 2025, not 1939. Fico wrote on his Facebook page, which is banned in Russia as an extremist. He also noted that as a legit prime minister of a sovereign country, he has the right to decide on his visits and not to be subject of external directives. Fico called Kallas' statement an occasion of discussion about democracy in the European Union. Reason, basically, to discuss level of democracy in EU, which is clearly a reason. Who the hell is this extreme Russophobe and clearly mentally disturbed individual, by the way, Kaja Kallas? I mean, to take a look at any her statements, and she does quite a lot of them. I mean, she's clearly mentally disturbed individual, right? You can see it, but so some psychiatrist should take care of her before it's not too late. And that person is definitely not in a position to dictate to leaders of other countries what to do, when, and how or why. And Fico is 100% on point there. Vzglyad newspaper, meanwhile, is reporting that Maria Zakharova, official spokeswoman of the Russian Foreign Ministry, commented on these crazy statements of Kaja Kallas when she was threatening, basically, leadership of EU countries if they will dare to visit Moscow. And let's see what Zakharova has to say. The European Union's plans to ban leaders from coming to Moscow on May 9th are manifestation of the European Nazism, said the Foreign Ministry spokesperson Maria Zakharova. And we have a quote here: if this is true, then Euro-Nazism is being revived before our eyes. This is how the fascists 80 years ago forced those they consider their second-class people to renounce their homeland, ethnicity, and faith. Quote Zakharova thus as saying, this is how she commented on the EU's intention to deny Serbia accession to this association in EU if Serbian President Aleksandar Vučić arrives for a victory celebration in Moscow. And Zakharov also has a point, by the way. Fascism, it's a fascism, what Brussels are doing, and all bureaucrats, Brussels bureaucrats, are fascists in my personal opinion. They hate freedom of speech, they hate authenticity of the people, they hate all they want to see is a gray mass that obeys orders constantly. Anything else they want to ban. And if that is not a fascism, by the way, then I don't know what is. They hate literally everything, by the way, that formally they stand for. Freedom of speech, human rights, and the rest of it, right? They are totally fake, absolutely fascist, criminal individuals. Globalists and their puppets in the bureaucracy of EU or the bureaucracy of their EU member states, majority of them, and also UK, by the way, that no longer part of that bloc EU. Let's continue. RIA Novosti is reporting that when it comes to celebration of their victory in a great patriotic war, Peskov made a statement that over 20 heads of states from worldwide, by the way, will visit Moscow and will celebrate this great and join us in the celebration of this great victory. They will participate in victory parade, and well done. My applause to all those leaders. As I said in my previous updates, by the way, on 9th of May, representatives of vast majority of humanity gonna be here in Moscow. 70, 80, 90% of humanity, representatives of, gonna be here in Moscow. And this is right, because this victory is victory for all of us. It's a victory for all of us, right? After all, Nazism and the fascism was defeated by generation of my grandfather, right? And one should also keep in mind, dear friends, that countries that are now leading the charge against Russia, UK, France, unfortunately still US, these countries used to be our allies during the Second World War, you know, and now they are hostile, which is the shame. But yet again, tell these to globalists that are destroying collective West countries due to their crazy geopolitical ambitions, and they are clearly trying to destroy the entire world. And I will end this update, dear friends, on this news on a trade war that China has halted purchases of the Boeing aircraft, and not just aircraft, but also spare parts and so on, which is definitely a big escalation in a trade war between the two countries, and a huge strike on Boeing that already experiences some immense difficulties and the troubles. Yesterday, at one point, I saw news that actions of Boeing shares, price on Boeing shares plummeted over 5%. I don't know numbers right now. Maybe it's higher than that. But it's not about price of Boeing. It's about real state of this company that is really struggling, and also about this escalatory ladder between two major economies. Seems like Beijing is definitely not intended to compromise on anything, at least for now, and maybe Washington should reconsider its policies in regards to China, because are US really in a position to wage a trade war with China? I have some doubts about that. I mean, Chinese economy is in better shape, in much better shape, if you ask me, than US economy is. So I don't know, maybe Washington will fast track negotiations with China so that they will start de-escalating. Otherwise, they're gonna harm each other for sure, China and US, and they're gonna harm, by doing so, they're gonna harm world economy, entire world. So hopefully they will de-escalate, but this information is clearly indicates that Beijing has no intentions to de-escalate. I mean, if Washington continues, then they are ready to also respond on that. And meanwhile, Boeing being squashed already, I guess, because I mean, they are barely breathing, by the way. That company barely is breathing, right? And last good news about Boeing was this announcement of US President Donald Trump that Boeing won their competition to build next generation fighter jet, F-47 or whatever. But it was a win for Boeing potentially, but it was a lose for US militaries, because what kind of plane Boeing gonna build? But are you serious? What they gonna build? They are barely capable of building planes, civilian planes, by the way. I mean, and military planes are much more complex, isn't it? And I think that was a mistake on part of Washington to. But also, I mean, one can understand that it was an attempt to save the company. That's why probably Washington gave that order to Boeing. But will it be enough? I don't know. I have some pessimistic views about future of Boeing, but anyways, I'm gonna end this update on that. Hopefully you will find this episode informative and interesting. And if so, please click that like button, leave some commentary, share video with your friends, or information about my channel. That will help her theoretically to reach wider audience. And if you like my work, if you like my channels, please consider to support her. You can do it through several means, as I already mentioned, through PayPal and boosted platforms if you want to donate, or you can subscribe to my Patreon page. All the links are under this video in the description box and in the pinned comment, including crypto wallet. Time to time, I do have donations on crypto, so I guess I need to mention that crypto wallet too. So yes, this is it. Thank you very much for your attention. Have a wonderful day and take care.